Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we are going to be taking on a puzzle called Diwali Candle 2 by Schwupel. Now, I think I've done Schwupel on the channel at least twice before, and I may be misremembering this, but I think Schwupel is the master of yin-yang puzzles, and this is another yin-yang sudoku hybrid with a touch of cave logic about it as well, and apparently it is absolutely brilliant. So you can see I get loads of given digits again. Maybe this is a new trend. I've got 11 given digits in this one. I had 20 the other day. Didn't make the puzzle much easier, but let's see what Schwupel's created for us in a moment or two. But I need to start today's video actually with an apology. So let me show you why. This was the start of yesterday's amazing puzzle called Pliers by Phistomefel, where I made a logical jump which was unjustified. There was a lacuna in my logic chain, no less. I need to fix it. So I need to say sorry, frankly, to Phistomefel for not showcasing this puzzle as well as I might have done. I reached this position and boldly asserted, I looked at these 8s and I knew there was a king's move constraint, and I immediately said, well, of course you can't have an 8 in there. And that's magnificent, because that means there's an 8 in one of those, and that means there's a 9 in one of those. And that was total and utter bobbins, because for some reason in my brain I didn't really see this big dividing line between row 3 and row 4. And I should have done, because of course it is still possible for there to be an 8 in one of these if you put the other 8 sort of there. That would be absolutely fine. You could have it that way round. You could, even if you really wanted to, have it that way round. But in my brain, I think because I coloured these pliers in, I felt that they were part of the same box, so I immediately just said, well, that doesn't work. And that was total and utter gibberish. So you may have been wondering, and I know some of you were, how do you get rid of the 8s in here? And the answer is, unsurprisingly for Phistomefel, quite beautiful. Let me show you how to do it. The way to do it is to think about row 3 and row 4, and to ask yourself, how many 9s can we have on the pliers in these rows? Now remember, a 9 on a thermometer can only ever go in the tip of the thermometer, because if you try and put it earlier on, you'll get a 10 or more in the tip. So the clever thing about this is that these 4 cells, which are the 4 tips of thermometers in row 3 and row 4, and therefore the only positions that 9s can go in, they all see each other. It's not possible to put 2 9s into that 2 by 2 because of the king's move constraint. And that tells us that in this row, the maximum number of, well, these 2 rows, the maximum number of 9s in these 16 cells here is 1. But we know there are 2 9s in these rows altogether, and that means there must be a 9 hidden away in one of these 2 positions. And that does it, because now of course we can turn our attention to what's going on down here in the second set of pliers, if you like. And because you can't have a 9 here, there must be 2 9s on these pliers. And you'll remember at the start of the video solve yesterday, I realised that you couldn't have a repeated digit on pliers. So there must be 1 9 on this set of pliers and 1 9 on this set of pliers. So those 9s have to go in the tips. So that's these cells. And now we can ask the question, how could there be an 8 in one of these positions on the yellow pliers? What would the implication of that be? Well, if we try and put an 8 here, you'd have to put a 9 there, and that's not going to work. And that means that neither of these cells can be 8s. And once we got that, we can now justifiably eliminate these pencil marks from the tips of these pliers, because once there's an 8 in one of those 2 cells, there cannot be 8s in those cells because of the king's move. And that then the video could have carried on from there. But I'm disappointed with myself, because it's just a simple oversight. And had I spotted it at the time, I think I would have discovered this rather lovely. When I saw the comments coming in last night, it took me about 1 minute to spot this, because I'd got used to the logic in my head around the fact that these cells here are really important, when combined with the fact that you can't repeat digits on pliers. It is a gorgeous puzzle. I really hope some of you had a go. I hope I haven't spoiled it for those of you who didn't have a go, but I needed to correct that for my own sanity and to do a bit more justice to the puzzle than I managed to do yesterday. So I'm sorry if I annoyed you yesterday. It really wasn't my intention. Now, let's get on to happier matters. Happy birthday, Maggie Warner. It was your birthday yesterday, and I read the comment on the video too late to include it in yesterday's video. You've turned 20, so I wish you many happy returns of the day. I hope this morning you have woken up feeling that you had a sufficient amount of cake on your birthday yesterday, and I hope you had a great day, obviously. Next, the Kickstarter. We've only got 2 weeks to go. So if you want to grab a copy of Cracking the Cryptic's Greatest Hits Volume 2, the only way to do it is to support the Kickstarter, and the days are running out. So yeah, I'll try and remember to put a link on the screen, and there'll obviously be a link in the video description. Next bit of news. Oh yes, the gas pack. So right. A couple of things to mention here. The gas pack has come out on Steam. So this is a new pack of puzzles, completely new puzzles. Some of you have been asking, oh, are these just the puzzles that have appeared on the Discord server? No, they are not. They are specially made for us to appear in this app by Clover, by Sam Cappleman-Lynes, and by Philip Newman. And the gas puzzles are the best way to learn how to do these variant sudokus, because they're sort of entry-level puzzles. They have lots of interest about them, but without some of the complexity, so you can get your head around them a bit more simply, I suppose. And those puzzles are definitely out on Steam now, so you should be able to find it there. I'll try and remember to put a link to that under the video. They are out on Android in some parts of the world. For some reason, Google decided it was going to release the pack in stages. So for some people it came out a couple of days ago. For some people it's still not there, but it should be there soon. That's what we've been told, and I think on App Store it is out. So my only other plea is if you play the puzzles in the app, or indeed play the puzzles in any of our apps, and you enjoy them, I know I'm taking your time by asking you to do this, but please consider giving the app a nice review. It does help with these various algorithms that we're always chasing to try and get these wonderful puzzles promoted. Now, next, I've got the winners of the Patreon competition to come up with a solution guide to Jovial and Shy's puzzle, Another Language. This was, I mean, I can talk a bit about it now. It's an incredible puzzle, and the ideas they'd incorporated into their intended solution path revolved around girth symmetrical placement and some interesting ideas about uniqueness, which I have to say are quite complicated and utterly beautiful. And we've been lucky enough to get lots of solution guides in that have been trying to talk through some of those ideas. And Jovial and Shy thought the best solution guide came in from Pietato. So Pietato, one of the most brilliant solvers on the Discord server, and a very fine setter as well. You were the winner, so we will be in touch with you about your prize. And Jovial and Shy said honourable mentions go to the following two submissions. Matthew Boyack, for your video solution. Now, Matthew, I have to say, I watched your video solution. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, so well done to you. And also to Trevor Tao for being the most amusing solution that we got in. Jovial and Shy apparently found it hysterical, as did I. So Trevor, you know why. Yeah, that was brilliant. And I can tell you that if you are a patron of the channel, very soon I will be posting a video by Jovial and Shy talking through how they intended the puzzle to be thought about. So that's going to be so cool. I've not seen that yet, but I am looking forward to it. Now, finally, on the introduction, long introduction today, but I had to do the apology, so sorry. The 12 Labours of Hercules, which is it's November's monthly reward over on Patreon. This is this wonderful set of puzzles by Peter Venus, by Spartacus, and by Panthera, and with all of this incredible artwork, the original stories. Anyway, lots of you have managed to solve all 12 puzzles, which is an incredible effort. Very well done. And I'm going to congratulate, well, I'm going to read these out in the order we've received them. So Amber Dot, I talked a bit about yesterday. That was the first entry we got in. Then Gonzalo Garcia, then Jan Gazelius, Adam Jaziri, Nicholas Owl, Andrea Pachera, Nathan Gilbert, Leon Zhang, Kelvin Graham, congrats on the new job, Kelvin, Surab Das, Anthony Anderson, Ned Bartlett, RJ Powers. I'm sorry to hear that Toddler Henry did a less good job this month of distracting you, RJ. David Barrado and Joe Chang. They were the first 15 correct entries that we've had in, and very well done to all of you. And if you haven't had a go at those puzzles, or if you just want to read a good story, check that out. It's over on Patreon right now. Now, let's get on to Diwali Candle number 2 by Schwupel. I don't think Diwali Candle number 1 ever touched cracking the Cryptic's eyes. But these are the rules. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Shade some cells in the grid such that all shaded cells are orthogonally connected and all unshaded cells are orthogonally connected. Now, if you're worried about the word orthogonally, don't be. It's a complicated, long word with lots of syllables that means something incredibly simple. It means two cells are orthogonally connected if they share an edge. Okay, so those two cells are orthogonally connected. Those two cells are not orthogonally connected because these two only connect at a point. Now you could make these two orthogonally connected by making that also shaded. Now these 3 cells are orthogonally connected. And the idea in this puzzle is we're going to have some shaded cells and some unshaded cells, and all the unshaded cells need to be connected to one another orthogonally. All the shaded cells need to be connected to one another orthogonally. And no 2x2 area is fully shaded or fully unshaded. So we can't have all of those shaded or unshaded, depending on what colours we're using for each of those. Now, here's the interesting bit of this puzzle, or the novel bit of it. Candles illuminate the grid and must be unshaded. A digit on a candle is equal to the number of consecutive unshaded cells, including itself, that the candle sees in its row and column. So let's look at this cell. We're told that this is unshaded. I'll need a colour for that. Let's go green. So let's say that that cell's shaded, that cell shaded. All of these are unshaded, and those are unshaded. I've not given any thought to whether this is possible. I just want to think about what number we would put in the candle here, because the candle horizontally sees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including itself, and an extra 2 vertically. So it sees 7 cells altogether. So that cell would have to be a 7, is I think what we're being told in terms of how these candles work. So it's a really interesting rule. That rule is basically derived from cave puzzles. If you've ever done one of those, it's exactly the same principle. So this is sort of a, it's a triple hybrid. It's a hybrid of cave, yin yang, and Sudoku. And do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I really hope I'm not going to be asked to do Sudoku too early in this puzzle. That would be very, very distressing. Although we do have some repeated digits, then we've got 2 8s, 2 9s, 2 1s, 3 1s. Oh no! Okay. Alright, now what we can say straight away, I have realised, is that it's not possible. In fact, I should unshade, shouldn't I, all the candles? Let's do that first. That might be a better idea. Unshade the candles, because we're told that that's the case. So all of those can be green. Now, none of these green cells can contain a 1. That was the thing I was realising, because if they did contain a 1, then we're saying that the only cell that they see, including themselves as unshaded, is themselves. So we'd have to pen them in using a whole heap of greynesses, and that's going to be a problem, because this cell is most certainly not connected now orthogonally to all of the other green cells in the grid. So that won't work. So that means that look, in this box, oh no, it's actually not, it's not even worth pencil marking, I don't think. Or maybe, no, I refuse to do it. I refuse to do it at this stage. there might come a point when we're desperate and we're going to do it. But in a way, I'm relieved by that, because that doesn't suggest that maybe we've got to do sudoku early on. So it's probably going to have to be some yin-yang considerations. Now, there are some secrets about yin-yang. There are secrets about sudoku too. I don't think the secrets about sudoku are going to come into this one, because I don't think this is an arithmetic puzzle in any sense, is it? But there are secrets about yin-yang, and these are secrets I only share with my very favourite people, my absolute top tier of friends and family. And of course, if you're still here after 15 minutes of me yattering on, you're definitely in that coterie of people. So let me tell you what the secrets are of yin-yang. Let's start with, can you have a checkerboard in a yin-yang puzzle? Could you have a 2x2 that had this Battenberg effect in it? And the answer is no. And that's because you need to connect these grey cells using orthogonal connections. And however, meandering the path is that you achieve that by, let's say it was that path, you can see this cell cannot now connect to this one orthogonally. So there is a problem with a checkerboard. Now, that leads to some interesting considerations, or similar considerations, I suppose, when it comes to the perimeter of yin-yang puzzles, which are often the place to start. And that is because how many different colours, how many different stretches of contiguous shaded and unshadedness could we have in the perimeter of a yin-yang puzzle? And the answer is there must be one contiguous set of shaded cells and one contiguous set of unshaded cells, unless the entire perimeter is one colour. But what you can't do is sort of, have speckled effects. You can't do this sort of thing. Because now, when you connect these greys together, however you do it, you will isolate this cell. So what you need to ensure is that you have a contiguous and continuous section of greynesses, and then a continuous section of greennesses, and that would work. I mean, it obviously doesn't work in this case, but if we did, for example, try and interrupt this set of greens by putting grey here, you can see the moment I connect this grey to this grey at the bottom, I'm definitely going to be carving out and partitioning off some greennesses, and we don't want to do that. So let's go back to when I was doing my checkerboarding, which is around here, and see if we can apply those principles. We've got one cell on the perimeter that's actually got any definitive colouring. Right, okay, but I can see what to do here, because one of the rules was that we mustn't have a 2x2 area of the same coloured cells. So let's look at that little 2x2 potential there. What would happen if both of those were green? Well, we'd have a 2x2 of green. That would break the rules. So there must be a grey cell in one of those two positions. But by the same token, there must be a grey cell in one of those two positions. Now that means we've got grey on the perimeter in these dominoes. And how are we going to connect them? We have to make sure it's a contiguous connection. It can't come through this green cell. So the connection of the grey that must exist in these two cells and the grey that must exist in these cells must come around the left-hand side of the grid. So we can instantly do that, which must be important. So now that cell becomes green because I have to avoid a 2x2 of grey. That cell becomes green to avoid a 2x2 of grey. And that cell becomes grey to avoid a 2x2 of green. And suddenly we're away. Right, and one of these has to be grey as well, actually, doesn't it? Because otherwise, again, we've got the same problem. Now, if we were to try and make that grey and that green, that will not work. Because then the grey here will have to connect to its friends, and that will isolate greennesses. So that must be grey. And possibly this one as well, but definitely this one. Now, okay, now I'm stuck. So now maybe we've got to consider candles, do we? Well, both of these candles are potentially interesting because they only are allowed to see greennesses in one direction because they've been sort of been penned in by their greynesses, haven't they? So this can't see any horizontal greenness because the greynesses bound it and provide it with a sort of alleyway to pass through. So the maximum value of this cell would be if all of those were green, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is 7 or less. And no, I'm not pencil marking that. This one, I think this is 8 or less. No. All right. I'm going to change tack here. I'm going to change tack. Remember what I said about the perimeter having to be contiguous sequences? Well, what would happen if that was green? If that's green, how do I connect green to this green? Well, the only way is to do that. And that makes a 2 by 2 here. That's really lovely, actually. It's such a simple point, but it's so hidden. You know, I didn't see that at all until I was just looking at the green things in this row. So you can't do it down here either. So you can't do this in either direction. That can't be green, and that can't be green. Because again, you'd get a 2 by 2 of green in the corner. So that cell's grey and that cell's grey, and that means we can greyify more of the world in the perimeter. So we've really got a dearth of greenness in the perimeter and a whole world of greyness. Right. Has that actually done anything? That's the question. Well, that's at least... Oh, you can't put 4 in here. Oh, but it can go up, can't it, as well? Sorry, I was about to claim that I could extend this green horizontally because this is preventing these candles from having 4 in, and they already see 4. So we know that these are at least 5. But it doesn't have to be 5 horizontal, it can be 5 vertical. Although they can't both be... Oh, hang on, is that it? Right. They can't both go vertically. Because if they both go vertically, we'll instantly get 2 by 2s of green. So one... Right, so... Okay, I don't really know how to pencil mark this, but... Because it's not possible for both of these cells to be green, one of them must be grey. And they can't both be grey, because if they're both grey, these have the same number in them. Because they're only going to see whatever's in the row. So actually these two cells are a grey and a green. Right, this is really beautiful. This is a really weird logic, but absolutely beautiful. Because now, one of these being grey is going to pen in, let's just say it's this one. That's going to pen in this candle. So this candle's total is going to be the total number of greennesses in row 8 that are seen by this candle. But obviously these two candles will see whatever the greennesses are in row 8 exactly the same. So they're going to have as their base number exactly the same number as whatever that is. But they can't be the same number because of sudoku. So that means this has to extend upwards. Because otherwise it will have the same number in it as this one. So that must be green. Let's get rid of that. We don't know which one of these two. Oh, we do now. We do now. Okay, because now this being green, of course, gives the opportunity of this being a 2 by 2. So that opportunity must be rejected. That means that must be grey to a rejected 2 by 2 of green there, which means that's green. Oh, don't make a checkerboard. Don't make a checkerboard. So that would be, if that's grey, that 2 by 2 is a checkerboard. So that's green. This is now green, because that's what we were saying. We can't have two greys here, or these numbers would be the same. This grey has to get out, so that grey grows. Oh, yeah, okay. And that cannot be a 4 because of this 4. So this must see at least 5 greennesses in its row, so we've got to go again. Now that avoided 2 by 2, so that's got to be grey. So this is at least 5. I don't think it can be that big, because this number, whatever's in this cell, has to be whatever's in this cell plus at least 2 more. So we can't make that 9, because that's going to imply this is at least 11. I mean, you can't make it 9 anyway, but we could have made this 8, but then that would have been a 10, because these two are seen in addition to whatever's seen in the row. So we see 5, so it's at least 5. It can't be 9. So 6, 7. Oh, no, it can't be 6. Sorry, it can't be 6, because if it's 6, we have to take this cell, and in taking that cell, we'd see that cell as well. So it can't be 6. So it's 5, 7, or 8, I think. But it can't be 8, because that would be a 10. Right, so we're down to 5 or 7 in this cell only. Okay, and if it's 7, we're seeing all of those. That would be a 9. Oh, that's it. Right, that can't be a 9 by sudoku. Yeah, that's beautiful. Right, so if this is 7, I have to take all. It has to see all of those green ones. But then this number is going to be those 7 plus 8 plus 2 more. That makes it 9. It can't be more than 9. It's not a valid sudoku digit, so it would be 9, but that would clash here. So this is 5, and that tells us that cell's grey. And then we must avoid a checkerboard, so that cell's got to be grey. This is at least a 7, so it's only got the ability to be 7 or 8 now, because it can't be 9. And this one is 6. No, it is at least 6. 7, 8, or 9, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that looks like it might be possible. This one's got a bit penned in now, although it can actually see an awful lot vertically. This one being 7 or 8, that feels like that might be where we need to think. So if it's 7, that becomes grey, and that becomes grey to avoid a checkerboard. If it's 8, that becomes green, that becomes grey, that becomes green. And that becomes green, and that makes it into a 9. Oh, that's weird. Okay, that I don't think that can be 8. Because if it's 8, this has to be green. But I think the process of making this green is going to greenify this once we think about it to its logical conclusion. Because now we have to avoid a 2 by 2 of green, which makes that grey, which means this has to be green. And now look, I've got to avoid a checkerboard here, so this cannot be grey. So it would be green, and that's converted my 8 into a 9. And that won't work. So that is 7, which means that is grey, which means that is grey to avoid a checkerboard. This is not 7 anymore. 6, 8, or 9. 5, 6. Can that be shaded? That's going to have to be shaded, though both of those would be shaded to avoid a checkerboard. That would then have to escape. Yeah, there might be connectivity questions that we're going to have to consider in a moment to make sure our greens connect. 8, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, okay, that can't be 8. It's similar to what we were just looking at over here. If that's 8, it has to become a 9, because we're going to make these two green. And in doing that, we then have to avoid a checkerboard here. which would make this green and turn this into a 9. So that just can't be an 8. It's a 6 or it's a 9. And interestingly, if it's a 9, we've then got to think about making sure that this escapes. Okay. Oh yes. Okay, where does 1 go by Sudoku in box 7? I don't know the answer, but I can now see it's a bit restricted. Rarely get as excited as that about a Sudoku digit. Please don't be about Sudoku, Schwupel. You wouldn't reduce yourself by making us do Sudoku so early in your puzzle, I'm sure. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Right. That is truly, truly gorgeous. So I'm going to say something about row 2 now. Pause the video and see if you can see something unbelievably beautiful about row 2. For those of you who managed to do it, congratulations. But the thing I noticed is that can't be green. For a lovely, lovely reason. If you make this green, look what happens. Now this cell sees these 2 cells. Now to avoid these 2 having the same count as this cell and therefore having the same number in them, we'd have to put a green there and we'd have to put a green there, and that would be a 2 by 2 of green. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, just to show you what I mean, imagine that was 5. Then obviously this can't be a 5. So it would need to take a cell here. This would need not to be able to be 5. So both of these would grow downwards. And in growing downwards, we would create an unpleasantness that we don't want to have. So that tells us, look, that this little cell is grey. And that then means we need to avoid a checkerboard here, which makes this cell grey. Now this cell has now got pinched. So it's only counting whatever it sees horizontally. I'm sure that's important. I'm just trying to work out why. Oh, alright, I'm going to abandon this. I can't see what to do with it, but I've just noticed that this is now in a cul-de-sac and needs to escape, so we've got to move this down here. Oh, that's done. That's done. I know the count of this cell. It sees 2 cells, so that's got to be a 2. This one sees 3 cells. But if it grows again, it can't only grow by 1 cell, because in taking this cell, it would see that cell. So that cell is 3 or 5. If it stops there, if it's 3 and that's grey, then that would be green and that would be green. I don't know if that's a problem or not. Sorry, I realise I've just corpsed there. I haven't got anything very clever to say about that. I've got to be a bit careful still in this row, don't I? Because it's not possible both of these cells grow downwards, because that's going to create the 2 by 2 problem. Right, so one of these is penned off. In order to prevent... Actually, is that true? It's certainly true to say they can't both bend down. They can't. It's not possible both of these are green. If neither of them are green, then that's not going to work, because these will both have the same counting. Yeah, so this is the same as whatever we discovered down there. This is one of each. Okay, right, but these can't... Right, okay, this is good. The one of these that's framed by grey beneath it, let's say it's this one, just for a moment. what digit can this be? And the answer is, I don't know, but it's definitely not a 1 or a 2, so it's at, it's at least 3 horizontally. So that means that whichever one of these is framed, well, we must extend. So that's getting us to this one, which means that the minimum number now is 4 in these candles. So let's actually, I'm going to actually put that in. 4 at least. Actually, am I? Because it is 4 to 9, I think, that they've got the option of being. That one can't be 4. So one of these is a 4 or a 5, and it is capped, depending on whether this cell is green. And does that one have to grow? Yeah, that one must grow downwards. This one must grow downwards because one of these is the count of the horizontals. This mustn't have that same count, so it must see more vertically. That means that one's green, and that means we must avoid a 2 by 2. So that one's grey. This is lovely, isn't it? It's really lovely. I don't know how many of you do a lot of yin-yang puzzles, but I do quite a lot of them, and I just think this is really stunning that you can do this sort of, you can have this intricacy going on. And it's the blend of sort of cave logic and the sudoku logic and the yin-yang. They're working, it all works together and creates these beautiful ideas. Yeah, okay, so now I've got to avoid a 2 by 2 here now. And this is, oh, this is going to give me a 4 in one of, well, one of those two. Oh, this is it. I've done it. I've done it. I've done it. Because, right, watch this. One of these two cells, well, one of these two cells must be grey, because otherwise we've got a 2 by 2 of green. So that means those are definitely grey. Now look what that's done here. The horizontal count seen by the candles is 4. And we know that that 4 is in one of those two cells, because otherwise we've got the 2 by 2 of greennesses here. That cannot be a 4, so the 4 goes here, and therefore that must be the grey. This must be green. That grey's got to get out. One of these two cells is now a 4, which is potentially going to be interesting for this one. Actually, hang on a minute. That... Okay. I now think that Schwupel is just showing off. That cannot be a 4. How could I make this a 4? It's just a horizontal count. There's no way to make it a 4 without forcing it to be a 5. Because if I mean, it's just impossible to do it. Yeah, if it's 4, you can see because of the boundaries here and here, we have to take those cells. But now that cell would have to be grey, and that creates a checkerboard, which we know can't exist. So it can't be a 4. So that's a 4. Now that's a shame, only in the sense that we don't get to learn about this candle. And this 4 doesn't seem to be doing very much by means of sudoku. But can we do anything clever with this? That's the question I'm now asking myself. And what number can that be? Maybe that's a good question. So it looks to me like it's either 3 or... Oh, it's not 5. Oh, hang on. Yeah. I don't think this can be 2. Because if it's 2, it clearly can't come left. So it would have to go right and then end. But that's going to create a checkerboard here. If we make that green and that grey, that's exactly the same problem I was worried about with making this a 4. It doesn't work. So this is not 2. It can't be 1 because it would be totally penned in. and it can't be 4 or 5. So it's just 3 by dint of the fact that's all it can actually be. Now, to be 3, it's either going left or it's going right. Right, and that's lovely. That's lovely, because now I think we can allege that this 6 is green. Because whichever way this goes, let's say it goes left and these are green, that's going to be grey then, and to get this area out we have to make this green. If, on the other hand, this is green, that's grey, and we have exactly the same problem, so that's always green. Okay, that's literally done nothing, apart from shade. Oh no, I'm lying, I'm lying. Look, that sells, it gives us that count. That's now a 5. Which, is that doing something? It gives me a pencil mark in box 7. Ah, can that be a 5? Maybe, actually, maybe it can be. These two cells we know are at least 5. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that is absurd levels of pencil marking. Okay, what does that mean? Which candle do we look at now? We shall look at, what was this candle? This candle was 6 or 9. So if that candle's 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going all the way up there, and then the 3 would extend that way. That would be grey. That would be grey. That would be grey. We'd get all sorts of things going on if we could force this. Oh, I see. No, it's much simpler. It's much simpler. This simply can't be 6. Ah, it's really gorgeous, actually. That's just gorgeous again. That can't be 6 because this green area is immediately penned in now. Because if that's 6, I have got to put a grey here. And the only way of getting this green out is going to be to make that green. But the moment I do that, it hits the 3 and that makes that grey. And now I've penned in my green area. Isn't that lovely? That's absolutely lovely. So that's a 9, which is going to do massive work, because now I have to shade all of those cells in. Now I must avoid a checkerboard here, so that becomes green. That becomes grey because the 3 is completed. That becomes grey because we need to avoid a 2 by 2. That becomes grey to avoid a checkerboard. Nori nori. Well, we're going to have some greenage here, otherwise we're going to have 2 by 2s of grey. Oh, but look, this count is done, because that sees 4, 5, 6, that's a 6. This is now not a 6. So we've got to work out whether this can be... If this can't be 5, it's going to have to be a big number. Sorry, I just want to stare at this for a moment in case there's something obvious connectivity-wise that we can do. But I'm not seeing it, I don't think. 9 is in one of those 2 cells now. That's potentially interesting. Right, let's check this candle. So if this candle is growing and being a 7, it can't be a 7, because it would take those 3, and in doing so it would become an 8. So that is 5, 8 or 9 now. Now if it's 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be shaded. That would have to do that. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Is there a pretty way of seeing that very easily? I mean, I can see it doesn't work, so I can tell you that. But how could it even be 9, actually? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, okay, it's very clear that it can't be 9. Because if it's 9, it sees this cell as well, and it becomes a 10. So this is 5 or 8. I think it's going to have to be 5. Now, the reason is, if it's 8, we've got 4 here, 5 here, 6, 7, 8. So these have to turn green. And this would have to be grey now. Now, yeah, oh, actually, okay, here is a simpler way of seeing it. This cell is now grey to avoid a 2 by 2, and that cell is green and cannot connect to its friends. And that would be very unfriendly of us to inflict that upon that green cell. So we mustn't do that. We must be kind and make this a 5. And making this a 5, this becomes grey, and that becomes green. That becomes grey to avoid a 2 by 2. That grey's got to get out, so it's got to come down there. This green's got to get out. Well, it's not going to find any friends in the bottom right-hand corner, so it's got to go there. This grey's got to connect, so it's got to go there. And this cell is a 4, just by the fact it sees 4 vertically. That cell cannot be a... Oh, it cannot... Well, this... Yeah, okay, this is great. This cell here cannot simply be a 4 or a 5. So it must be at least a 6, because it already sees 4. And in becoming a 6, it's going to say it's going to connect here. So that's all connected. And this grey isn't connected, so it must connect there. And there we go. We've done the yin-yang. There we go. Absolutely brilliant. That's a 2. It sees 2. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 7. And actually, just take a bow now, Schwupel, because that whole thing, I don't know how long it took me. I started late, didn't I? Because I had a long introduction. But it was totally and utterly beautiful. I can put 6 in the middle box here. Oh, I see. And now I've done all the candles and all the yin-yang. Literally now we have to do a sudoku. Oh dear, this isn't going to play to my strengths. Right. This box here has a 1, 5, 6 triple in it by virtue of not being able to put 1s, 5s and 6s in there. So those cells are 1, 5 and 6. That's not a 1. And that's not a 5. So these squares are 2, 4 and 8. So that cell's a naked single. That's a 2. This is this is not a 4, 8 pair. There's a 4 over there that helps out. So 8 is in one of these 2 cells by sudoku. This column needs 3s, 7s and 9s. And there's a 3 in the corner which never got a song because it was given. And a 3 here. So the 3 in this column goes here. These are a 7, 9 pair. That might be resolved, but I can't see how. Whoopsie. Misclicked and lost my army. 3, 3. 3 is in one of these. 3. Oh. 3 is in one of those, I think. So, oh, so I get the 3. I get the 3 in box 1. Can we do any better than that? 3 is in one of 2 places in box 8. Right, I might check this. I know I can see those cells have got to be 7, 8 and 9. Now can we do better? That's not 9. That's not 8. No. There's a 9 in one of these 2 for sure, because in this triple of 7, 8 and 9, the 9 is on the right hand side. 2. This 2 must be in one of 2 places in box 5. So there's a 2 in one of those 2 places in box 8, which places 2. It does actually place 2 in box 9, which is quite cool. So we get a 2 in one of 2 places up here. And it's going to be a case now of trying to work out where the weakness is in the puzzle. 2, 2. Yes, I can get the 2 in box 4, which gets me the 2 in box 5. Nah, I can't see how to take 2s any further. What about this row then? We need 1s, 3s and 6s, and that's a 6. It can't be 1 or 3 because of the column. So that means that's a 1 over there, and this is a 3, which means that's a 3. How many 3s have we got? Loads. All of them. Once I put that one in, I'm going to get that one. There we go. Lots of 3s. So these squares here are 5s, 7s and 9s. And actually that one can't be 5 or 7, so that's 9. So you almost have the impression here that Schwupel has been designing this to be smooth at this stage, which I totally approve of. And I wish I hadn't said, because now when it gets unsmooth, I'm going to feel very silly. But this is a 7, 6 in this row has to be there. That has to be 7. So these cells at the bottom are 1, 2, and 8. Which, can't do it. 1, 2, and 8. That's not 1, that's not 2. Bobbins. Okay, what about this column then? 2, 5, and 8. That cell is a 5 or an 8. That cell is a, oh dear, a 2, 5, or an 8. Okay. What about those two squares then? They have got to be 5, 7, or 8. So 7 in this box is placed. And that cell's a 5 or an 8. And 7 is in, 7's in exactly one place now in box 4, which puts a 9 at the top of the grid. Okay, and maybe we try column 1, 4, 5, and 7 to place. So that's a 4 or a 5. Oh, the 5. It's as simple as that. That's a 5. This is a 4, 7 pair. So these two squares are known. They've got to be a 6, 8 pair. It's not, well, we don't know the order, but we know that they're 6 and 8. So these squares are now 1, 4, and 9. I think literally each one of those gets 1 digit removed from it. That gets 9 removed. That gets 4 removed. Oh, this 5. That's getting me that digit by the looks of things. I don't know if that's been available for a while. Probably. This square's a 1 now, because it can't be a 4. So that becomes 4. That becomes 9. That becomes 1. These squares are 8 and 9, which we can fill in. That gets me the 7 here, the 8 here, the 9 over there. That gets me the 7 here and the 5 here using this. That's a 5 by the power of Sudoku. This is a 4 and 6. Come on, keep going. That's a 4. That's a 4. That's a 7. What about 7 up here? Yep, I can get that. This is not 8 anymore. So this must be 1 or 2. Oh, bobbins. I thought that was going to work. Alright, what about this? This is 2 and 8. Now that also seems to be unresolved. Alright, these are 1 and something. 1 and what? 6. How is this not resolved? Okay, now I am convinced I'm missing simple Sudoku. It's not a surprise, but it's annoying. This 8 is giving me a 2 at the bottom, so that gives me those digits. That gives me that digit. That gives me that. That's a 1, I think. That's a 5. And I've not put 9 into this box, and I can do. So that might be the correct solution. Let's click tick. Yay. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Diwali Candle number 2 by Schwupel. That is a quality puzzle. I've just realised I've had the wrong glasses on for the whole solve. So it's an absolute mystery to me how I solved it. But I did. And I loved every minute of it. What a beautiful puzzle. The yin-yang at the start is so cool, the way it interacts with the cave logic and making sure that, you know, you don't break Sudoku by having the same number in little sort of alleyways. That to me was what made this puzzle. It really is lovely. Let me know in the comments how you got on. Let's hope I haven't made any logical errors today. And I do enjoy the comments, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.